Hopefully my computer won't complete. Hello, and welcome to yet another Bright Sessions anniversary live stream. I'm very, very excited to say that this month I am joined by the incredible, prolific Gabrielle Urbina. Thank you so much for being here, Gabrielle.
Oh, my pleasure. Anytime. Anything for you.
And congratulations to both of us for being on this list
On
of
the essential listening poll.
the essential listening poll, which was very exciting, I think. And
I think that is one of those, I think that both of us have kind of a policy of, don't listen too much to lists. The people that make them don't know what they're talking about. This is a good one. Everybody listen to this one.
this is a good one.
List.
This one's right, though.
Yeah.
Also because we voted in this, right? That was the
Yes,
whole
yes.
point of the thing, is that it's left of dial media reached out to a bunch of different podcasters and asked them what their five, I'm trying to remember exactly what the prompt was. It was five essential or five formative.
in my memory, it was 5 shows that kind of influenced you.
Yes.
Which really impacted how I voted, because the way that my brain kind of parses that, it kind of precludes any show that I worked on.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that is then kind of I would have maybe, if it was worded slightly different, I would have maybe voted for other people. But I'm still I was still very happy to vote for the folks that I did. And I think that it is a much both more inclusive, more representative, and far weirder list than most of the recent ones that we've gotten.
Yes, I completely agree with that. And yeah, because there was a time list of 100, best podcasts a couple of weeks ago that had 2 fiction shows on it.
It was kind of like Moonface and Night Vale.
Yeah.
Both amazing shows.
Deserved.
But not the be-all and the end-all.
Well, and also out of 100 slots, it's you'd want to see a few more. And yeah, I'm happy to say that
It'd be nice.
Yeah, that this the whole list is supposed to be your favorite podcaster's favorite podcast.
Yeah.
And there was 5 or 6 fiction shows on there.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? It's funny. I feel the exact same way, where it's whenever I have the opportunity, because also I vote in the iHeartMedia Awards every year too.
Mm-hmm.
And I never want to vote or nominate things that I work on. And I'm realizing that I did do that for this, because I did do both Wolf 59 and Wooden Overcoats. And technically I am in an episode of Wolf. And technically I wrote a bonus episode for Wooden Overcoats. But I still don't think of those as shows that I was involved in, because they were shows that I came to first as a fan.
Yeah. And
So,
those are,
it's a little different.
and I would say that is a very, not to minimize your contributions to either show, but those are sort of relatively minor facets of the thing that you built. Whereas
Yeah.
I sort of came on to the main writing staff for the last season of Wooden Overcoats, and that made me a little bit more I don't know, I feel strange being this sandcastle that I contributed to is the best goddamn sandcastle in the world, for sure.
Yeah, because even if it's true, you don't want to be the one to say it.
No, you want to be a little bit more humble.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I to jump right into questions, I guess we've got some great questions that we got in advance,
Right.
including some questions about Wolf. I think this is going to be a little bit different in terms of I'm sure we'll talk about the Bright Sessions, but also I just wanted to we kind of grew up together, right, in this
Yes.
medium. And we really have been, I mean, you were in before I was. You were there a year before I was. But I feel we really just came up together. And so I kind of wanted to talk about the 10 years of audio drama. And so if folks have questions, please put them in the chat. We will do our best to answer the chat. Thank you all for joining us. But yeah, I don't know. I feel it's been, I was reflecting on how long we've known each other and how we first got connected. And I'm curious what your memory of how we first met is, because I have a very specific memory in my mind, and I'm curious if it's right.
I mean, gosh, now I'm kind of in what order did things happen? But sort of my memory of it is that, for anyone that wasn't around, you don't know, man. Back in 2015, if you were doing like an audio fiction show, especially in America, they had like a couple more things going on in Britain with the BBC and everything, but
Yeah.
especially if you were like an audio fiction independent show stateside, the moment that you were doing that, it was kind of like, oh my god, another one. We're gonna be best friends now forever.
That's so true.
And I sort of think of like us, the Paul Bay shows, a couple of other things. We were all sort of in a very similar. It's almost like we're in a grad school cohort of kind of just
Yes.
like we spent so much time on the same in the same sort of online spaces and kind of using the same tags on Tumblr and kind of just like yelling about the same things.
Yeah.
And I think that especially back then it was so around the central monolith of Apple Podcasts that the moment that there was kind of
Yeah.
a like, wait a minute, a new show popped up in the like, who's listening to my show? Who are these people? Who is my new best friend? I'm so excited. And I think that we were kind of there for a little bit. And then I forget exactly how we started talking on Tumblr. With us, I presume that it is that either you made a comment about Sondheim and then I commented on your Sondheim comment, or vice versa.
That is exactly what happened.
Yeah, I forget who started it, but like it had to be that.
I think I started it because I'm pretty sure I just like posted a post in the Wolf Freak 59 tag because I was just a fan who was like in that tag about sort of musing whether the advantages of floating.
The tagline on the website, yeah.
Yes, if that was a Sondheim reference, of course, from the opening number of Pacific Overtures, which we eventually saw together at Cossack Stage Company
right.
many years after that. Yeah, I made a post and then you responded, and then yeah, we sort of went back and forth because it was exactly that feeling of like, and I think for us specifically, it was like, oh, an audio drama friend, and also like, oh, you're also obsessed with this thing that I am also obsessed with. That is separate from audio drama entirely.
And I think that there was also like, as soon as we started talking, there was just so much in common about our experiences. You know, we are, if I'm correct, we are within a year of each other in age.
Yeah.
Like at most 2 years. I need to check my own paperwork on that. But
I know.
it was also-
I think we may be just a couple months apart.
Yeah, I think so. And it was kind of
Yeah.
this like, and I think we both had kind of very similar like experiences of going to college and studying the things that we wanted to do, and then immediately coming out and having so many doors slammed in our faces, and kind of just going, well, I'm going to start my own little clubhouse where I get to write and direct and do things. And kind of we were just like figuring out these airplanes when we had already leapt off the side of the cliff. And to sort of like find someone else that was so close to our own experiences in midair. It was so invaluable to kind of just be like, how are you dealing with it? Like, what's going on? Have you figured out where this piece goes? What's happening? And yeah, and I think that, you know, we were kind of figuring out shows together, our shows both. Yours started a little bit later and ended a little bit later, but I think that we both sort of went through the process of ending a show within about a year of one another, and
Yeah,
that
I
was
think
then
that's
kind of
right.
a like very unique, strange experience that few people have had. So it was just
Yeah.
kind of a lot of, I am so glad that I have kind of this experiential twin that very quickly becomes kind of the like first person that I go to for so many creative, procedural, podcasting, even just like life things at a certain point.
That's such a good way of putting it. And another bit of a Lauren Gabrielle lore that I always find very amusing is that we lived 2 blocks from each other for about 2 years before we met.
And did not know each other at all.
At all,
While
at all.
we
And had
lived
no way
so close
of-
together.
Yeah.
And then I moved out of LA, and we became friends after I had abandoned
Yep.
that residence. Yeah.
But I remember,
yeah.
first talking to you about, I was like, oh yeah, where do you live in LA? And you told me, and I was like, oh, what street? And then it was like, oh, you're literally around the corner. You're like, you're 2 buildings away. It was crazy.
I think that there was like a party that we were both at where we realized that, and then in a moment of extreme vulnerability, we shared like 3 like art hot takes, and we were both like, oh my god, I share the exact same wrong opinion. Now don't say that out loud before anyone else, like, let's stop talking about this before anyone else hears. But I am so glad that you also share that wrong opinion that everyone agrees is completely wrong, but we both know is the right opinion to have. And I think that after that, it was kind of a like, okay, cool, we were meant to be really good friends. Yeah.
Yeah. God, that sounds like us, and I believe it. And it's always fun too when we find something, which we have through the years found something that we vehemently disagree about. Yeah. Like something where it's like, we both feel very strongly in opposite directions, and I always think that that's fun, and it is so valuable. I think this is something that, like, whenever anybody's asking me about starting an audio drama and sort of coming up and like, how did you do it? Like, how did you, like, what's the best way to like get people to listen to your show? What's the best way to, cross promo with other shows or whatever? It's like, it's literally just like making friends. Like it's like that community was so necessary. And like, I think I'm sort of grateful that like we both started when audio fiction like wasn't really much of a big thing in America. Right. And that we did have just this like tiny little village that we could all kind of get to know each other, and the fact that we're all basically still hanging on as much as we can and making audio fiction and getting to call each other about like, hey, like, how did you solve this problem, or like, what was it like working with this person? It was really just lovely.
I think that crucially though, there's kind of the element of we were both fans of each other. Like we weren't just looking for a friend and then kind of putting up with the other person's show. There was kind of this element of like, no, what you're doing is incredible. And then, like, aside from that, we seem to fit really well as people. And so there is kind of that element of seek out your community, but also seek out, like, the work that really speaks to you and try to kind of get in touch with those people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but this is now an experience that I've experienced a couple of times for various reasons because of various collaborators. But Wolf was the first time I experienced a thing of, like, enjoying reading fan fiction in the thing and then becoming close enough with the people who make it where you're like, oh, I can't separate from this enough to do it.
Right.
Which is like a wonderful problem to have.
Yeah.
And actually, speaking of sort of being fans of each other, we got a couple of Wolf questions that I also just like want to know. One of them,
no
someone
let me just say that right now.
Great.
I'll refund you your time.
Andrea asks, when Change of Mind was originally released, the two of you and Zach and Sarah apparently recorded a conversation as a special feature for Spoke. The other special features have made their way to the extras page or the main Wolf feed, but not that one. Is it available somewhere? Yes. I had completely forgotten about this entirely.
No, I lie awake at night and I think about that.
Oh no, I'm sorry to have immediately asked a tough question.
No, it's not so much tough as just sad, because that is kind of one that, the reason why it is kind of lost content is because Spoke, as so many of the great podcasting companies of our time, has gone to the great
final
farm
resting place.
In the sky. And there is kind of, and like that sort of whole infrastructure is kind of no longer there. And I have spent so much time talking to the people that we knew that worked there about kind of, can we get the stuff out of the wreckage? Can we do it? And that particular interview is just the one that is like,
lost to time.
I didn't edit it. The person that edited it doesn't remember sort of like where like the master files were kept. Every now and then I take another stab at kind of like, could we find it? Because it was a really good conversation. But no, I wish that I had better news, but like that is one of the like lost pieces of Wolf 359 content, unfortunately.
And it does happen. I mean, in the course of sort of doing all of the stuff for the 10th anniversary of the Bright Sessions, I listened through all of the raw audio from the first 3 seasons of the show. To pull out bloopers. I did listen on 2 times speed because I was like, I can tell when something funny happens. Like, I don't need to, and like just entire episodes, just I have no raw audio for. And it's like, I am the sole keeper of these files. Like, I don't know, but it's like they were on some hard drive. They didn't get transferred to another hard drive. They were in the cloud. The thing, like I used to use a cloud service that no longer exists. Right. And so it's like, It is just kind of wild how even now in the 21st century, when we're making something that like exists on the internet forever, like there's still just stuff that can get lost.
No, and I think that you and I especially came up from a generation where it was like, when we were kids, it was like paper copies of everything. And then for a while, it kind of became like digital copies. And then suddenly it was, I think that around the time that we were doing Wolf 359, the Bright Sessions, it was all of a sudden like, there's cloud solutions. It's like a permanent solution. You can access it from everywhere. You never need to worry about it. And that was great until all of a sudden the cloud goes away. And I think that we are now kind of dealing with sort of that, like, maybe the physical copy. Like, there's something to be said for that.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I still have a floppy disk of my first unfinished novel that I wrote when I was 13.
Incredible.
I don't know if I have the, like, I don't know how I would view it ever.
Retrieve the information if you wanted to. Right.
Yeah,
right.
But it exists. Eleanor has a question in the chat for us. Specifically about writing the 3 books for the Bright Sessions, but they also ask, did you ever have any scrapped ideas or deleted scenes? And that question I think is very interesting to me, because for the book in particular, actually, yes, there are some deleted scenes specifically from the 3rd book, Some Faraway Place, because of the format. Oftentimes when you're deleting a scene in a book, like it becomes useless out of context, right?
Yeah.
Because you're kind of like shifting things around. But because Some Faraway Place was like journal entries and Reddit posts, and like it was sort of more
fragmentary and so
yeah. I do have some deleted scenes, and actually, if you are in a Tibba Pal, you can just read all of those. I just shared them there.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, for you, like, did anything? Obviously, like little conversations get cut here and there in the course of making a show over many seasons. But like, did anything major get cut, or like an idea didn't get pursued?
Up to a point, yes. So there's little pieces of it. So like a section in episode 3 of Wolf 359, I remember when the edit came together, it was just kind of like, why are we going into this like cul-de-sac? And so that ended up getting cut and then rewritten into episode 7. Because that was, mind you, that was kind of the period in my life where it was like, yeah, I can write and direct and edit an episode every 2 weeks. That's so reasonable. So
to be in our 20s.
So no part of the buffalo was unused. Like if something was removed from something, it was kind of like, that is a piece of writing that I don't have to do 2 weeks from now. We are keeping that in the archive.
Oh, that's real.
And then there were definitely a lot of, at the start of each season, we would kind of do these outlines that would kind of be like full outlines for the season. It was just kind of like episode 1, this happens, episode 2, episode 3, episode 4, episode 5. But there was always this kind of understanding of the further that you go along, the more this is the thing to beat. And you may discover that there's kind of a thing that this wants to be more than that. So there was kind of a lot of episode concepts and episode pitches that didn't get used. The biggest thing is when we did our live show, very, very famously, the live show was the only episode of Wolf 359 that we did a table read and then threw out the script completely and just started over.
I don't know if I knew that.
Yeah. It is sort of the only time that me and Sarah Shackett wrote something and then like did the table read, and after the table read there was this kind of like awkward, stunned silence. And then slowly kind of a conversation started that was like, are you guys sure about this? Really, are you sure? Maybe you shouldn't be sure. And it was just kind of this thing where it was like, if moment by moment the writing was fine, and there was just like something so fundamentally broken in that first iteration of the live show script that it was like, this is not a rewrite. This is a throw it out
page
and
one
start
tear
over.
down.
Yeah. But
Do you
so
still
there
have that
was-
script?
I do, and fragment, and again, pieces of it, like the best hits of it, kind of seeped into seasons 3 and 4.
Interesting.
And even if there wasn't like exact scenes, kind of concepts of it or ideas of it. But especially in Wolf 359, we were outlining so much, and we were kind of
Yeah.
doing. It was such an iterative process, and by the time that you got to draft, it was like the ideas had survived like the Hunger Games. So it was very rare to kind of just like remove anything wholesale, aside from that one script that was just broken.
That definitely. I wrote an entire book a couple years ago that then I read it and I was like, oh, I need to start over, and I just started over, and that's just what happens sometimes. But I think it's interesting too because you were a writer's room, right? And you guys were writing together, and so I think that like and when we eventually got a writer's room for the Bright Sessions or even the bonus episodes, right? Like the bonus episode that you wrote, it was like there was like a pitch process of like, here's sort of the powers that you have at your disposal based off of what canon is, and like, what are some pitches, and then like the outline. I mean, I remember seeing your outline for the Bright Sessions episode and being like, oh, right, this is what a real writer does. I am here with my like 2 foot by 2 foot chalkboard that sits on top of my dining room table where I just like scribble stuff, because I was, for the first 4 seasons of the Bright Sessions, I was entirely alone.
Yeah.
And so like so many things, I mean, not entirely alone, right? Because I had my amazing actors. I had Misha Stanton as our sound designer, and all of them had such amazing ideas.
You had a brain trust behind you, whether it was
Absolutely.
explicitly in the writer's room or not. There was so much brain firepower on that show.
Absolutely. And like things definitely shifted all the time because of something that an actor would say or something that Misha would mention. And like, it grew from that. But yeah, I mean, I just had the both the detriment and the luxury of just being able to like, well, I'm just going to throw out the whole back half of the season, and like it doesn't affect anyone but me. Like the only person I'm sort of screwing up their workflow is me. Which now, working now that I've done like a lot more collaboration, it's like that outline is so significant, I think.
Yeah. No, but like, even sort of in the outline, even with all the planning, it happens.
Oh, totally.
With Hit Singles, the new show that I just put out in Audible, and that was one where it was like, I had a writer's room, the caliber of which I've never worked with before. It was me, Sarah Shackett, Ellen Winter, Octavia Bray, and
Dream
that
team.
was still one where we ended up writing an episode that, come the revision process, we sort of went, we need to throw out this entire script and just start over. We need sort of a new idea, because this idea, there was something about it that was just a round hole for a square peg, and we just need to kind of rethink it top to bottom. Every now and then it does happen.
Do you keep those things? Like I have like a slush document for all of my shows where I just throw in everything that I delete. Do you like have something similar?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's good because you never know. You never know what, part you're going to end up using later down the line.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, and if anybody ever thumbed through my computer, they would see the like truly horrible obsessive. They would open up the folder for one episode, and it would be, like draft 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, 1-4, 1-5.
Final.
Yeah. And it would sort of be like, why do you need 27 different iterations of the same script? And it would just be like, well, because you never know when you might need that one sentence that you deleted. You never know. And there is nothing more painful than deleting a sentence, realizing that you want it back, and then not quite getting the alchemy of it right. Like sort of kind of being like, no, what I had a better wording of it before. Was there an ellipsis? How did I, no, that's the stuff of nightmares.
It's brutal. Like I hate Final Draft for so many reasons, but unfortunately it is the industry standard. And the number of times a Final Draft crashes on me in any given moment. If you are a writer and you're starting out and you're using Final Draft, just get in the habit of that Command S every 5 seconds.
Fun fact, Final Draft has an autosave feature. Like every however minutes.
It does, yeah.
You need to turn it on. Ask me how I know. Ask me how I discovered that is not on by default, and that you have to manually turn it on.
Oh God, how much did you lose?
A lot.
Oh no.
And it was for a freelance project. It was one of those like, I believe in the project, but it is not the song of my soul, and I really just
Yeah.
want to be done with this script.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, I just lost the entire script. Good stuff. Okay, cool.
Oh
Let's
no.
do this.
That is so brutal.
Yeah.
But actually, this is a good bridge to another question from Eleanor, which is, what is your writing process like? How's the setup? What do you do when you come across writer's block? What is your, I don't know that we've ever really talked about, like, when you're like, you need to work on a script or whatever, and you have to like sit down and get going. Like, do you have like a ritual? Do you have a process that you stick to?
My biggest thing is go somewhere. Like, my biggest thing is just like leave and go somewhere.
Yeah.
And then during like COVID lockdown, I was really struggling with it because it was sort of this kind of like, my brain is just like so not tuned to you are doing work and living and writing and everything in a single space. And the biggest hack that I found, that was one of these, like, somebody told me this and my breath caught in my chest because they were like, well, why don't you give yourself a commute? Just like when you need to start writing, go like walk around the block. Just something to send the signal to your brain that is, we're flipping the switch from playing video games to writing. And that changed my life for like the 2-3 years that we were all kind of on lockdown mode. But that for me is kind of like the biggest thing. Most of the writing that I do is I go to coffee shops, I go to bars, I just like go somewhere outside. And, like anywhere, as long as it is kind of a like go somewhere and just kind of like sit quietly in a corner, have like one drink until somebody looks at you about like, how long have you been here? And you were using the outlet, and you like, have you been here for like 8 hours? But like that's just kind of like the biggest thing for me, of like get outside the house and get like somewhere that just sends that signal to your brain of, we are somewhere that we went to write something.
I love that.
Yeah.
I enjoy writing outside of the home, but I don't do it often. I do it a lot less now that I have a separate room for my office. When I was living in LA,
totally.
yeah, I had, I was just on my living room couch all day, every single day, and yeah, I would often go to this wonderful place called the Fat Dog on Fairfax Avenue. It is no longer there.
Oh, no.
But yeah, it shut. The one in North Hollywood shut down too. Like, it totally, which is just tragic. A lot of my like favorite writing spots in LA did not survive the pandemic, but maybe it's because prior to that it was me and 3 other people with their laptops getting one drink and staying for 6 hours. Which, I think that that's a perfectly fine business model. When you have writer's block, what do you? I mean, like, well, actually, let me first ask, because different writers have different opinions on this. Do you believe in writer's block? No. Like, do you believe that that's a thing? Okay, yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
And I am sort of someone that is like one of those people that, when I say that it took me 40 hours to write a script, let's be real. The first 33 were me not writing the script. The first 33 were, me staring at like the blinking cursor on the page and playing a like flash game and sort of walking around and crumpling up pieces of paper. But what I've realized is that, for me at least, it is like, that's your brain doing math on what the problem is. Like, that's kind of like your brain kind of slowly moving things around and kind of trying different configurations. And usually, once it's like, oh, I know how the pieces are arranged, the writing comes quickly. I think that writer's block, the way that like people usually describe it, where it is kind of this like, oh, I know what the scene is, and I know what the characters need to say, and I know like what the themes of it is, and I just can't fucking writing. That is something that I don't really experience. But yeah, for me it is kind of just like, no, you don't have writer's block. You are doing math on trying to figure out the right way to write it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think I do experience the writer's block of like, I know what I need the scene to accomplish and I just can't get there. Probably because I don't outline. And so, like, you know, I'm not say I don't outline. I just like that's usually not my first instinct. Usually, I sort of sit down and I write, and then I like outline after the fact. Because never in my life have I stuck to an outline. That's actually not entirely true. With books, I stick to an outline a little bit better, but with seasons, I don't.
I'm gonna greatly annoy you for a moment.
Please.
I have been an obsessive outliner for all of my life.
Yeah.
And I literally just about 2 weeks ago finished writing a screenplay, which I don't know what I'm ever gonna do with it. Which I sent to Lauren, and Lauren did me the favor of reading it.
It's so good.
That is the first thing in over 10 years that I wrote without an outline. That I literally wrote it like
That
I'm just
makes
going
me
to start writing and just kind of be like, I do not know where this is going. I do not know what's going to happen next. We're just going to like see what happens. And it was
That
a
is
fascinating
infuriating.
experience. Sorry, I apologize greatly.
because it's like it's so. I mean, not to like talk about something that nobody else has read, but like it's very structured and like and it. How many drafts did you do of it? Is that your first draft?
That is the third draft.
Okay, all right, that's a little bit less
a little
inhuman,
better.
but still pretty remarkable. What was that experience like then of writing without an outline? Was it fun? Was it frustrating? Did you experience any of that writer's block?
A little bit, but it was fun to kind of have a slightly more exploratory process because it felt a little bit like being one of the audience members. Because, so for example, there's a section of that screenplay where you are kind of in this setup where it's like there's a ton of people in one room, and because of the way that the narrative has unfolded, you sort of know that something really bad is going to happen to someone, and very specifically that someone is going to do something bad to someone else.
I gasped out loud.
And it was one of those things where I think that if I had outlined it, I would have just spent like weeks doing the charts and the diagrams of all the different possibilities trying to figure it out. Whereas kind of just going through it and starting to write it and kind of just being like, I'm starting to get a sense of who this person is, they would say this. I'm starting to get a sense of who this other person is, they would say that. And then halfway through just being like, oh my God, you know who it would be wild if it was? What if it's this person over here? That would like knock me out. Like, holy crap. And so then it was sort of this like, oh, I'm having this now very lived in reaction to that idea. That should probably be what goes in the script. But it is kind of then sort of a like fascinating little process of letting myself play it out in the writing as opposed to kind of being like, we're going to do all of the math in advance.
Right. Yeah, that's so interesting. And now thinking about that scene, I totally like I literally did I gasped twice because like a thing happens and then a reveal happens and it's like this 1-2 punch. It's so surprising. And it in your description, it makes a lot of sense to me that it's something that you like discovered in the moment because it's that beautiful thing that you always want with like a twist where it's like it's both inevitable and surprising, right?
Right.
And I think that like following that instinct is something that like I think that is more the way that I write than not, of sort of just like I'm discovering these people and like what are they feeling, what are they, you know, like I write a lot of meandering conversations and I'm a lot less structural, which is all to say like Eleanor, if you're looking for, you know, like a advice on how somebody who does experience writer's block, I don't know that I think I agree with you that in that like I don't know that writer's block is real. Like I don't know that there's like this like wall that's just like stopping you from something. It's usually that you need to do the math.
Yeah.
And for me, I just go and do the dishes. And that's like, that's the thing. Like I go and do the dishes and I listen to my little playlist that I make for all of my writing. And usually, you know, I'll get like 3 dishes in and I'm like, oh wait. And then I run back to my computer and like, you know, have to make sure that I don't leave the sink running.
I think the gear shift is invaluable. Like when you're kind of in that process of trying to do the math on something and just kind of being like, okay, have you been sort of typing it out for a second, then you're getting nowhere? Switch to a notebook and try just like writing it out.
Yeah.
Is the notebook not like working it for you? Take a walk around the park and kind of mutter to yourself different possibilities. Just kind of anything to sort of send the signal to your brain of like, we're going to look at this from another angle. We're just going to like be using a slightly different set of muscles as we think about it.
The rubber duck thing, the sort of classic adage of engineers, software engineers, having the rubber duck on their desk so that they can talk to the rubber duck about a bug that they're trying to debug. That is a lot of the Bright Systems was written on voice memos, where I was like in my car driving around LA, like talking through a problem to my phone. And it's like, and then in the course of talking about it, you're like, aha. So yeah, gear shift is, I think, a really good way of putting it.
I think there's also a lot to be said for the exercise of write out all the things that are not the right answer, because I think that there's so much pressure to kind of be like, okay, we've got this locked room mystery, what's the solution? There's so much pressure to kind of be like, what's the brilliant solution that is going to like make everything come together? And if instead you sort of let your brain kind of go like, all right, no, never mind, don't worry about that, brain, let's just take a second and kind of be like, what are the dumbest ways to solve this? What are like the worst, most groany, most awful solutions? And if you just start making a list that is just like, what if the butler did it because he wanted a raise? What if his sister was still mad at him because he stole her toy when she was 5? What if his mother never liked him and so she poisoned him? As you make that list, all of a sudden you will arrive at something that you're like, oh, wait a minute, hang on a second. That one is not as awful as the others. Maybe there's something there.
Yes, I have a quick anecdote that actually leads to a question
Please.
that somebody asked in advance. And I am seeing also the questions in the chat, and I promise we will get to them. Which is that my senior year of college, I took a class called Creative Problem Solving, and it was
wow.
a
That sounds
professor
awesome.
it was honestly great. It was a professor from the theater department and a professor from the business school who were just like pals on campus and like started to talk about their disciplines and then like created this class together.
Wow.
And it was the first semester that this class was being given, and I was my like last semester at college, my senior year. And they had some like, guest speakers come in and whatnot to have us do like exercises. And there was this very funny anecdote about from a guy who was like from, I don't know, like Hasbro, or no, he was from sort of like marketing firm or something that had been hired to reimagine Polly Pocket for like a new generation. If anybody's watching and doesn't know what Polly Pocket is, are you familiar with Polly Pocket? Because I'm actually realizing that you didn't grow up in America, so I don't know.
I am. Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Polly Pocket, I don't know.
We lived in the capitalist shadow that this country casts.
Well, like, I don't really, like, even remember Polly Pocket being, like, that big when I was a kid. So it's, like, I never know if it's, like, it's not like a Furby, right? Like, I never know how, like,
No, it's not quite that ubiquitous, but it was around.
Right.
I remember
It was
them.
around.
Yeah.
I just don't know if they're around anymore, but it was like a little girl named Polly that you had in your pocket, and she had different, like, environments and all this kind of stuff. And they did
Yeah, it
exactly
was
that
kinda
thing
like
where they
little,
were, like,
miniature, almost like miniature dollhouses, really. Like, kind of just,
Yes.
like, little collapsible things. Yeah.
yeah. And they did exactly what you're describing, which is they were totally stuck, and they were like, okay, what's like the worst thing that we could do for Polly Pocket? And they were like, Polly Pocket nightlife, where she's like going
Hell
out
yeah.
clubbing and she's doing cocaine and like all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it led them to like, it led them to I think probably like a kid's version of that. I forget exactly what the solution was, but I don't know, that I think that really, that mentality of like, let me do the bad thing, I think is so important, both in ideating and then also like in writing a first draft of like, it can just be bad. It's okay for it to be bad. I think is important. But somebody did ask a question about college in advance, which is the connection that I was making there, which is, hi, Lauren, I'm actually looking into applying to colleges right now, and I was wondering what your experience at William & Mary was like. I absolutely love you and your work. If Gabrielle's up for answering, I would appreciate his response with his school too, which I would love to hear your response, because I think we both had sort of similar experiences that we went
Somebody wants
to.
me to talk about Wesleyan University. Finally, my time has come. No. I'm kidding. You should go first.
So I went to William & Mary, which is a school that honestly very few people have heard of. I discovered when I moved out west. It's in Virginia. It's in Colonial Williamsburg. So I heard Fife and Drum Corps every day at 4 p.m., which is, fun. I honestly had the best
Wow.
time. Like I'd
never heard that, and that just like colored a college experience in an incredible
Yeah.
way. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Proceed.
Well, and like I was a music major, and so I had to like listen to a lot of, I had to listen to a lot of music for class, right? Because it's like I would be taking romantic music, and we'd have an exam, and they'd play, a 20-second clip of Rachmaninoff or something. You'd have to identify what piece it was, right? So it's like I did a lot of listening, and I would walk up and down the main street in Colonial Williamsburg, because at night it's totally empty. And like I would be listening to music from like the 1700s, watching all of these people in costume like put the stools up on the table in the tavern at night. It was just it's a cool place to go to college. But I had a great time, and I think for me, one of the things I really loved about William and Mary, and the thing that I did not have, I did not want to go to college. I had a terrible time in school. I was bullied all the time. Everybody was terrible. And I did not like learning because school was just a nightmare for me. And so I was like, well, why would I want to go to college and
prolong
do that
this
more?
hellish experience for 4
Yeah.
more years.
Where like I can't even go home to like my own room at the end of the day. Like that sounds nightmarish.
Yeah.
But the thing I loved about William and Mary is that everybody there's a huge nerd, and like they all were so passionate about learning and about the thing that they were into. And I think that was my first experience where like the fixation on a TV show I had at the moment, or on a book or whatever, like where I would just want to talk about it in depth, was actually like welcome. And that was, I think, really formative for me. And I got a great education. I learned a lot. But honestly, for me, like, I think that the most important thing was getting like just the socialization, like realizing that like the people my age didn't have to be complete jerks all the time. And that like there were
Yeah.
other people out there like me who were like curious and enthusiastic and like, fans of things. So if you're thinking about applying, I highly recommend applying there because I had a great time. So that's my spiel. Now pitch Wesleyan for us.
Imagine heaven. No. No. I had a very similar experience in a lot of ways. Right down to kind of having a like very miserable time sort of in my like primary education all the way through high school, for a variety of reasons. And while I did want to go to college, I mean, I went to college in a different country than I grew up in. It was kind of a like, I really want a like very real break and a very real change, and even like a real chance to kind of really reinvent myself and kind of like really let my freak flag fly and kind of just be like, I'm obsessed with these things and I want to kind of really fully, completely dive into them. And Wesleyan was a great place to do that. And, I think that the shortest version of how good of an experience that I had was everyone that made Wolf 359 went to Wesleyan, with the exception of a couple of people that were guest characters here and there. But sort of everyone on the core team, Sarah Shackett, Zach Valenti, Michaela, Emma, Alan, our composer, all the actors from Cece Lynn Jacobs through Michelle Agresti, we were all classmates at Wesleyan, and we all met there, and we all like did plays together and short films together and acted together. And there was kind of this like, when I started to send emails around asking if people might be willing to do a like weird little space podcast completely for free, it was like, it was like a recruitment montage from like a heist movie where it was just kind of like they'd get the email and I'd get an email 2 minutes later just being like, you son of a bitch, I'm in, let's do this. And there really was sort of something very special about the people that I met there and the collaborative spirit and kind of like the art of it. And the last thing that I will say is that I wanted to study film. That was the main thing that I wanted to study. And when you're interested in film school, you are kind of going to like a lot of places that are like, and on your second day, you get the ARRI camera and you get to be like moving the lights yourself and lighting things and cutting the film with scissors and doing this. And I was kind of like the annoying egghead that was like, hold on. I don't need you to teach me how to use the camera. I need you to teach me how movies work. I need you to teach me what's a good edit. I need you to teach me how do you tell a story. I need you to teach me like not exactly like the technical side of it, but kind of the like storytelling side of it, sort of the like how the language of the thing works. And there were so many places that kind of had this attitude of, look, that stuff you either know it or you don't. What we're really going to teach you is how you kind of technically light a scene. And even back in like 2009, it was already like, I think that I can learn that from YouTube pretty well. Maybe not at like a master level, but kind of at like a pretty competent level. But the thing that I kind of can't figure out is like how the medium works. And Wesley and I ended up going there because it was one of the places that was like, no, we sort of talk about this art form as a movie is a series of narrative choices that people made in a row. And because they made those choices in that order for these durations, when 100 different people see a movie, they all understand the same things at the same time, and they all feel the same things at the same time. Let's talk about how that happened. And that was the thing that I was like, that's the conversation that I need to have for 4 years. And that's the conversation that, like, when I leave this place, I could go write movies, I could go write podcasts, I could go write press releases for oil companies, but, like, that's universal. That is a thing that is going to rewire my brain the way that I need it rewired. And so that's why everybody should go to Wesleyan University and study film there.
That is such a good point. I think speaks to, and I'm not, this is not a slam on this college, except for in the ways that it is. But everybody I know who went to NYU for film school had a terrible time. And like some of them have gotten very successful, but I think NYU film school tends to be very, very technical. And I think depending on what you do, like all the people I know who went there who like are successful are people who are like DPs or
that is literally what I was about to say. I know somebody that fucking rocked it at NYU and loved it, and she was someone that went in being like, my dream is to be a director of photography and to be a cinematographer, and I'm already a pretty good one, and what I need is just like field time, just like time holding a camera. And for her, brilliant. That was
perfect.
Great.
Yeah, and I think that like definitely, and then like I think what sort of the like you need to do all this technical stuff forgets is that like there's always going to be the people who want to write, there's always going to be the people who want to direct, there's always going to be the people who want to do sound, who want to do lighting, who want to do whatever else, and like not only could you like learn sort of the basics of like how to light a scene for like a web series you're making from YouTube, but also like if you are a good collaborator and you are good at your job, you don't have to, nor should you know that on a mastery level, right? It sort of like ignores like how important collaboration is. Like I was a music major. I did study music because I thought I wanted to go into music journalism. And then I was like, no, I want to continue to enjoy music. So I'm not going to do that. And so it's like, so I have some ability with which to like talk to like my composers and it's the same thing with sound designers to a certain extent, although that's largely because my partner is a sound designer and he explains things to me and very patiently, which is nice. But like more often than not, it is more helpful for me to be like, I want it to feel like this, rather than for me to be like, can we like actually like make this this atmosphere like 20% drier, and
can we up the gain on the reverb by 20% and do this
exactly
like with the spatialization.
I know that reverb can be wet and dry, but I don't know necessarily how to articulate which one I want, and so I think like recognizing too that you are going to be working with people who are obsessed with the thing that you are not obsessed with and can collaborate with you, I think is like so huge.
I think that there is also something to be said for, we only have these many hours and these many days on the planet Earth, and there's only so many things that we can put into our heads. And I did the sound design for all of Wolf 359 except for a mini episode here and there. And at the end of it, I kind of was left with this realization of, I think that I have gotten kind of as good as I'm going to get as a sound designer without getting like very fucking intense about getting better. And like getting really fucking intense would be such a commitment of time and effort and resources. And it was then ultimately kind of a little bit of like, and I don't want that work, like I don't want to be a professional sound designer. I don't want to kind of be operating at that level. I kind of would love to instead spend more time working with actors, or spend more time writing, or spend more time producing. I'm going to focus on that. And especially kind of when you are in the middle of everything, there's a very real mindset that you can fall into of kind of like, I need to be good at everything, and I need to be amazing at all of it. And I need to just kind of be like as good as a human being can get at everything, which is a really great way to give yourself a stress disorder.
Yes. And because it's impossible, right? Like it is, you cannot achieve that. And you'll also never achieve being perfect at the thing that you are dedicating your life to, right? It will always be that you are getting better at it all the time. And I completely agree. Patrick has a great question that I feel like you and I talk about with some degree of frequency, but I can't remember the last time we actually like sort of had the summit on the future of audio drama. But Patrick asks, y'all are the OGs and know the past and present landscape better than anyone. So what are your big consensus or non-consensus preferred predictions for audio drama's future? I actually realized I don't think I have an answer for this, like a clear answer.
I mean, so I sort of think that the best answer that I can give for this is that, as with most things, change that comes very quickly tends to not last, and lasting change tends to kind of trickle in very slowly. And so I think that, I think that in the time that we've been working, podcasting as a whole, and fiction podcasting specifically, has been like killed, buried, cremated, risen from the ashes, lived a long and meaningful life, and then died again. And I think that cycle's happened like 3 times.
At least, yeah.
Wolf 359 in the Bright sessions. And I think that it is because there is kind of a lot of like very fast, non-durable change that like rushes in. And then like, somebody's like, I'm here with all my money and I'm going to change everything forever. And all the newspapers are like, thank God, Joe is finally here with all his money. Everything is going to change forever. Finally, this can happen. And then, Joe does like 3 shows and doesn't get immediate results. And then it's like, I'm going to take all my money elsewhere. And then it's, RIP. We knew that it would fail. Why did anyone try this? Let's go. And then the thing that doesn't get written about is, and in the time that Joe was funding those 3 shows, this person made their first show and they got really good at this thing, and then now they are over here helping this other person out and doing this thing and that. And I think that for me, the biggest long takeaway that I'm having is how many people are translating kind of first successful big shows into long-standing kind of institutions. I mean, Atypical has produced approximately 8 million shows at this point. Long story short, we have about 5 independent shows and now a big Audible show. Audacious Machine Creative, the folks behind Unwell and Our Fair City, are now sort of, doing kind of a big umbrella production company, including a new show called The Harbingers, which I'm writing, and you should all check out.
Which
coming soon this
rules.
Fall. But like that's kind of the change that I am seeing, of kind of like it becoming more possible for the Flashpoint successful show to turn into and this is now kind of a like recurring creator that is able to make a living, or at least be able to continue creating here. And that's, I think, like less sexy than kind of like the gold rush is coming. Everybody, get ready. We're all going to be rich. But I think that is kind of the biggest thing that gives me hope, and that like seems like a durable change that like does seem to be sticking around somewhat.
I think that's really well put. I think the one thing that has always stayed consistent in all of those lives and deaths of audio fiction that we've experienced is that like the people who are in it for the love of the game just keep making their stuff.
Yeah.
And whether you're making it really scrappily, whether you're, crowdfunding, whether you're, I don't know how many people know this, but obviously when the Bright Sessions did our last 2 seasons on Luminary, the somewhat shortly lived subscription service, it was, kind of a controversial move, because even though the show itself wasn't going behind a paywall, we were sort of saying like, okay, these you're gonna have to pay for these 2 seasons. The budget that we got for those shows produced all of Atypical's other shows, except for Maxine Miles. Like Greenhouse, Look Up, In Strange Woods, Life with Leo, all of those were produced with the budget for AM Archives and College Tapes. And it's like,
not worth it. Nope. You sold out. We need to get in the time machine and just
the best
this.
decision I've ever made. And like I think that like that's what like anybody, like everyone you mentioned, me, you, Sarah, Zach, Jeffrey and Eleanor over at Audacious Machine, we are all constantly working on other projects that are not our own.
Yes,
we're working together. Jeffrey is sound designing my next audio drama, which comes out in 2 weeks, which is kind of crazy. And we also are doing work for like Audible and, Netflix, Marvel, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Spotify. And
Oh, yeah.
then taking that money and putting it back into like our own stuff. And that is the durable thing, right? Is the fact that like the people who want to be making audio fiction are making audio fiction. And when we can take the money and run, we do. But the money itself is not reliable. And I think that like, that's why I always encourage, like I've had a couple of conversations with folks. I've had some really interesting conversations with folks from TV specifically who will like send me their pitch of their audio fiction. And then we'll meet, friend of a friend that I got connected to through one of my friends who writes for TV. And like, I've had this conversation multiple times where like they'll have a pitch for like a great audio fiction series that like you gave me, a 16-ounce coffee and $7,000 and I could make it, right? And there's such a reluctance to make it on their own.
Oh,
because
yeah.
they're like, I should pitch it out. And I'm like, this cast is 5 people. Like you could make this in 2 weeks starting tomorrow. Like you could just do this. And I just always encourage people to do that because like, then when the money comes back around, you'll have the best resume that you can have, which is an awesome kick-ass show that people love. Like you and I have only ever gotten a job because of the Bright Sessions and Rule 59.
100%. Yeah.
Like that's just the gift that keeps on giving. And those are shows that we did not get paid to make.
No.
And until maybe eventually for other things.
No,
but,
we got like
yeah.
we got like wildly lucky, and those shows ended up having returns on like the long tail end. But
Yeah.
I know that, for 2 years, Wolf 359 was this money pit that was, my very expensive hobby that I could have gotten a pretty okay car instead of doing with the money
Yep.
that I spent on it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what your early days are for, and that's what your days in your 30s are for too, right? Like I'm making a bunch of shows for not really a lot of money, and like, and I think that we'll just continue to see more of that. I think that audio fiction has not had its serial moment, and I still think that is possible for us. So and listen, I would love it for it to be something that you or I make, or any one of our amazing friends. But like whatever that is going to be such a boon to the medium as a whole.
Yes.
That like I think the Magnus Archives like got close, right? Like the Magnus Archives, I think, is a show that reached the kind of fever pitch that Night Vale did back in 2014, but it did not break containment, right? Like it's still,
No.
and I say this with all the love in the world, and if you've ever watched me talk about anything ever, you know this, it is still a Tumblr show, right? Like it is still like a show that like the hordes of fans, myself included, are on Tumblr talking about, and we need something to like hit.
No, the thing
mainstream.
that you're talking about is going to be bigger than Magnus Archives. It's going to be bigger than Night Vale. To bring it back to the essential listening poll that we were talking about, Night Vale was around 14, which I think is an incredible accomplishment on that
Yeah.
list. The thing that you're talking about is something that when they take that essential listening poll 5 years later will be in the top 10. Will be
Yes,
sort of,
exactly.
like, if not in the top 5, will sort of be something that was kind of a, like, huge earthquake moment. I know that we should probably wrap this up and move on to the next question, but I have a great example of what I mean by like the slow change and what I think is a trend towards the better. I remember when we were starting out in like 2015, 2016, a multitude of articles from like big podcast journalists where the attitude was basically, and sometimes not even the attitude, but sometimes just explicitly the text was, look, audio fiction podcasts don't work. Stop emailing me about them. Just like I'm not going to talk about them. Period. Yeah. And this year, what I'm seeing a lot is, okay, audio fiction podcasts are a thing. They matter. I don't want to talk about them, but they're there. Moving on. And I'm just kind of like, that's what I mean. Slow change. Like, just kind of like we have clawed a level of, no, you can't totally write us off. You cannot just kind of sweep it all off the board and be like, this doesn't matter at all. You're still not engaging with it the way that I would want to. But like, look at that. We've gone from it doesn't work to it does work. I just don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with pockets of even further success, right?
Yes.
Be More Fangirl points out in the chat that an article just came out that myself and two other
In Seattle,
creators in
yes.
Seattle
Yes.
were Dirt and Metropolis, two fantastic shows. And yeah, Queerty just profiled Briggan. And so it's like there are, and like I had such a great, I mean, I talked her ear off. Bless her soul. Gemma Wilson over at the Seattle Times. She like called me and I just like rambled at her for an hour. But she was so curious about the space and she was like
Hell
so
yeah.
engaged and asking the best questions. And I was just like, and that's like why I think I let my mouth run away because I was just like, oh my God, I got one. I got a journalist who like actually is like really engaged in the subject. That's so awesome. So I do hope, especially as I think, you know, we are always feeling the ripple effects of sort of mainstream entertainment, you know, TV,
Yes.
film, what have you. And I think as those things, the thing I've been sort of like saying recently is that the streaming wars are over and nobody won.
We
Right,
all
which is
lost.
that like we all lost.
Yeah.
And I think that we're experiencing a sea change. I don't know where that sea change is going to go because I'm not entrenched in that world enough, and I also think that nobody really knows where that sea change is going. But I think that that is, you know, potentially, you know, moving things in our direction in a good way.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Speaking of fans, are you shocked to see, and I know we're already at an hour, so this may be our last question, but I think it's a very nice one. Are you shocked to see fandom and fandom content still appearing after all these years for both of your shows? I only started listening to audio dramas a few years ago, but I was so happy to find fans.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that it is kind of the shock that never wears off. And you know,
That's a
and it
perfect way of putting it.
I think that around 2016 was the first time that we started kind of seeing like people that were into Wolf 359 that where it was like, is this anybody's cut? Like, how do these people know us? Oh my God, is this just like somebody that just found the show and is now making art for it? And we all sort of went like, someday we're gonna get used to this, and if we ever get used to it, it's someday in the future because it's still absolutely mind-boggling.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like I think too, like I you know, it's funny. I got a text today from Lillian Holman, the creative Greenhouse and Atypical Artists production manager for several years. She was a podcast movement, and she was like, I was talking to a woman, and I mentioned your name, and she was like, oh, I love Breaker Whiskey, and it's like there's something about like hearing that like someone out there that you have like no relationship to whatsoever just like happened upon your thing. Another thing that gives me that feeling, which I don't know if I've ever mentioned to you, is that so like I spend a lot of time on Tumblr. I've been on Tumblr for 15 or 16 years. I joined 2008,
Okay.
2009. And for the last 12 years, I've had one blog. No, you cannot have the name of it. But it's like, that's where I actually spend my time on Tumblr, right? I've got my like Lauren Shippen blog, but like I actually like scroll my dashboard. And that's where I've made like some very good friends through fandoms that I'm a part of, through fanfic that I'm writing, totally separate from my life, right? I am not me on there. And one of the people that I met through one of my main fandoms a couple of years ago is like a huge Wolf fan. And so like I'll just be like scrolling my like normal dashboard and I'll see a post for it. And I get so stoked because I'm like, this thing is connecting me and this person who I like met randomly through a completely different work of art that has absolutely nothing to do with anything. And like I get to, you know, reblog this thing from her and like share in this fun thing and like, you know, for all I know, she's somebody who is involved with making Wolf 329, right? Like, I don't know who she actually is. But yeah, it never, ever gets old. And yeah, anytime I see like a new piece of Bright Stars's fan art, or like sometimes I'll just like scroll through my own fan art tag on my own Lauren Shippen Tumblr and just like look through the fan art that people have made because I think it's amazing. And you know, just the fact that people have written fan fiction, like it's the idea that anybody is motivated to create something by something we make, I think is just like the best possible outcome of putting art in the world.
I remember, I mean, 100% agreed. But I remember talking to you shortly after somebody got the first Wolf 359 tattoo, like where somebody like tattooed a quote onto themselves, or rather like had a tattoo artist to do it, and just sort of talking about like, I need to be so much much more careful about everything that I write ever. Like, you know, like, oh, like this is now like this like crazy awesome responsibility. And that's a particularly extreme case, but it is one of those things where once you know that that level of engagement is out there, it's so much harder to kind of just be like, I'm just gonna toss this off and whatever. It's 10 p.m. and I want to just be done and go to bed. Like, it is sort of this like, no, like, people are going to be looking for meaning here. People are going to be looking for engagement here. People are going to be looking for something that sparks something special in them. It should be worthy of that. You can't expect it. You can't demand it. You can't sort of kind of be like, guys, it's been 12 episodes. Excuse me, it's been 12 hours since the new episode. Where is the fan art? I demand content engagement. But it is one of those things where, like, you take it seriously on a different level once you know that that's there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about that all the time. And I also think about that all the time just in terms of, like, you know, like, I like to think that I you know, I'm always trying to be a good person and you know, I'm moving through the world with love and empathy and all of that kind of stuff. But just like, I also never want to be that person who, like, some fan somewhere is like, oh my God, I hate that Lauren Shippen wrote my favorite piece of art. You know, it's like, that's like a whole other thing, you know, like,
oh my God.
Like, I don't ever want to, like, you know, have a bad interaction with somebody and like ruin the thing for them. And, you know, that's a whole other conversation too about like art and artists. But I completely agree. And I think that like the real struggle for me sometimes is recognizing like there are going to be some people, I mean, there are always going to be people who just like bad faith interpret your art and come at you for things that are bigoted or judgmental or whatever else. But then there are also people who are like, because of their own personal stuff that they're bringing to your art, are like adding things to it that's not in the text, and like you can't do anything about that, right? And you can't sort of like add the albatross around your neck of like trying to write toward every expectation or every possible hurt feeling or every possible good feeling or anything like that. But it is that balance of like, people are listening, and I mean, you know, to quote one of our favorite artists of all time, like, children will listen, right? Like you have to be careful what you say, because people will listen and they'll internalize it, and it will become part of the way that they view the world. And also, like, you are not responsible for every person's feeling in the whole world, which I think is hard to square sometimes.
I remember during Wolf 359's run, when it was like the middle of it, and when it was like the first flush of like big fandom interactions, and it was kind of like those early days where you're kind of like, okay, whenever anyone asks me a question on Tumblr or Twitter, I'm going to try to do my best to like reply to it. There was sort of someone that kind of went like, is this character actually dead? You know, like, there's this kind of ambiguity over here. And I sort of replied to them and kind of went like, yeah, like, you know, we didn't completely spell it out, but that's not meant to be sort of a door that's maybe a crack open. Like,
right,
that person is just dead. Assume that the text of the show is that this person died.
Yeah.
And they literally wrote back, I remember, I don't think you're right. I think that like this, and that was kind of the moment where I like had to take a moment to sort of be like, okay, if you want to kind of divest from the text in that fashion, I can't stop you.
Right.
And it's kind of no longer my problem if your experience
like, why are we talking?
Right, exactly. Like, kind of, at this point, you are making your own ride, and you have gone off the rails, and I no longer have to account for you within the math of the narrative. If you want to sort of, like, come back and color within the lines, we'll be very happy to have you. But that is sort of a point at which you kind of go, like, I need to sort of be, like, accounting for everyone. And then at a certain point, you're kind of like, oh, wow, there's people, like, way over there, and I cannot do anything for them.
Totally. I mean, that's like a huge reason why I eventually stopped answering sort of like what amount to like headcanon questions on Tumblr, where it's like, what is this character's favorite, you know, movie, whatever. Like, in the early days, I was like, this is the greatest thing ever that people want. And it's still the greatest thing ever that people like my characters enough to want to know those things. But like, even with the caveat of like, this is not in the podcast. Like, I'm just saying this. Like, people still take those things on and then sort of like get disappointed or get, you know, sad that it's not the way that they thought. And it's like, this, which is why I've sort of like kept it to the Atypical Discord, where we have a lovely thing called Nap of the Author, because they don't want to kill me, but where we all just sort of agree, like, and some of them are in the chat right now, like, if I say something and you guys don't like it, like, just tell me to fuck off. Like, you don't have to listen to me. Like, this is not like, because I think that that's one of the great things about engaging with art, is that you can make it your own, and you can take this one little piece of it and write a huge fanfic that is like almost completely separate from the art itself. But you have to, that has to be like agreed upon, right? Like you can't go off and write that thing and then come back to the creator and be like, but no, that character's not dead. And it's like, well, no, they're not dead in your fanfic of it. And that fanfic is great, but like, you can't complain to me about that. Like, these things can exist in parallel, but not together.
Folks who have met me at conferences, conventions, you might have had the experience of asking me something very innocuous about kind of, you know, what is this character's favorite food? And I've unfortunately now had enough of experiences where when that happens, I will usually ask, before I answer this, is this to win a fight? Like, you know, like, is this like an argument that you're having with someone? Because if it is, I maybe don't want to row in there and sort of kind of be like, you know, this character from Unseen's favorite food is this or whatever. Just because, yeah, like, sometimes it is just kind of that, like, no, it's very different to kind of clarify sort of this, like, this mechanical thing within this episode, here's what was going on. And especially when the show is still ongoing, to kind of a little bit be like, here's just like 1 degree off screen what is going on. But then once it is sort of this like, no, the book is closed, it's finished, it's done, I said everything that I have to say, to then kind of be adding in extra material and sort of be like, oh, and by the way, this other thing happened to this person. I tend to be very careful of it. And also because, like, like, once again, like, it usually will not be, oh, I got this answer and I'm now very happy and I will just sit with it. It will usually then be like, I have this thing that I will sort of spread as the canon because it came from the person, and that can go to bad places very quickly.
Absolutely.
I like that we started with a question that was like, isn't it amazing to see like fan art? And we've really, in our usual fashion, managed to kind of be like, it is amazing and we love it and it's wonderful. And also
let's share all our anxieties around this. But yeah, all to say, please keep, creating, like, I mean, 100%. This is, and God, like, this is a whole other conversation that like, I'm always thinking about with Tumblr, and specifically too, and also like the way that fandom has functioned on Twitter. I'm always thinking about fandom, right? But like, whenever I'm reblogging a post where somebody's making commentary about the Bright Sessions or another one of my shows, I always like put in the tags like, tell me to delete this if you don't want me up in your business, because like right. I know that this is your space and I'm kind of like horning in just because like I also want to hang out here, but like if you tell me to leave, I will leave. Like this is not like I am a guest here. And so I think that just like and I've been, that's one of my favorite things about audio fiction is that like not only is the community of like creators and colleagues and collaborators that we have been so wonderful for so long, but like the fandom as a whole has also been really wonderful. Terrific. And just like sweet and welcoming and collaborative, and
100%.
It's been a good decade, I would say.
It's been a good decade for podcasting. I have lots of other notes for the decade.
Yes, thank you for the clarification. Yes. Improvements to be made, to be sure.
Between the years 2015 and 2025, I have notes.
Yeah.
But within the realm of making podcasts and audio fiction, no, and I mean, I think that for both of us, being able to make podcasts during some of the like particularly bad times during that decade have been one of the things that like kept us connected, kept us talking, kept us making things, kept us kind of going forward. And that is all really meaningful and valuable.
Which we will continue to do, and we will continue to, I
would actually like to take this opportunity to announce my official retirement from...
No! You actually aren't allowed to retire. Because, like, the fan Lauren needs more podcasts. Like, like, even if you did retire, writer Lauren and friend Lauren would still be calling you all the time, but fan Lauren needs more Gabrielle Urbina in the world. yeah, we'll keep doing it. And thank you, Gabrielle, for coming to talk to me for
Literally
15 minutes
anytime.
over what we were supposed to do, but literally we could do this for hours. And thank you all for joining. And I'm sorry that we didn't get to everybody's questions. I haven't like announced this sort of like officially yet in any capacity, but on Halloween I'm going to be doing like an extra long live stream, like multiple hours, where I'm going to be like catching up on all the questions that people have asked, and also like hopefully having people like drop in and out and stuff. So like put that on your calendars for sort of afternoon, evening Pacific time for Halloween. But then of course we will have live streams in September and October as well. Gabrielle, is there anything that you want to direct people toward that you're excited about?
Well, first I will say that if anybody had any questions specifically for me that we didn't get to, send them to me on Blue Sky, send them to me on Tumblr. Just like say that this was a question for this stream, and I'll do my best to answer them in the next couple days. Just because I feel that we sort of blathered on extensively about certain topics, and if anybody had something that they like really want an answer to, just like find me on Blue Sky, find me on Tumblr. I'll do my best to like get you an answer quickly. But no, I think that right now the two things that I will direct people to are, if you have not heard it yet, you should definitely check out Hit Singles, which is like my new baby. It is this wonderful romantic comedy that is about music and friendship and love and sex and being just like a really messy like person in their like young 20s. I think that it is maybe the best thing that I've ever made.
It
I
is
think that
so
it
good.
is a real sort of like accomplishment of everyone involved, including a lot of people that worked on the Bright Sessions, that worked on Atypical shows, that worked on Wolf 359 and other of my shows. And so that is Hit Singles. It lives in Audible. If you don't have Audible, but you still have a free trial for Audible, you can listen to all of it completely for free as long as you do it within 30 days.
Which you
So
will. I listened to it all in 2 days because I couldn't stop.
I think that it is like a very fun, like fast listen. And look, for anyone that has been wanting a Gabrielle show that is like single characters evolving episode to episode, unlike a lot of the anthology shows that I've done since Wolf 359 is over, that's Hit Singles. Hit Singles is like a big character focused like arc story. Check it out. Use those free trials. Get on Audible and check that one out. And then again in the fall, I'm going to be putting out a new show with the folks at Audacious Machine Creative called Harbingers, which is a sort of a big, epic, modern fantasy drama about two people that become the first two people in millennia that actually have real magic powers. Like, kind of, we went into a lab and had a physicist look at what we were doing, and the physicist was like, yep, that's magic. I cannot explain it in any way. And so they immediately become sort of, in very different ways, the two most famous, notorious people in the world. And they are also grad school exes, which makes them have all kinds of dynamics with one another. So a lot of details about that are still under wraps, but I can tell you that it is coming soon, and I can tell you that it is going to be this big, epic, long season of a show, and it is coming very, very soon. So keep an eye out for that as well.
I am so excited. I've only read the pilot, but I loved it. Fell in love with the characters right away. So yeah, I cannot wait for that. And then, yeah, in terms of Bright Sessions things, atypicalartist.co/10 years, 10 years, has information about all the live streams. If you haven't seen the previous live streams, they're all archived there. There'll be information about upcoming live streams there. There's also some cool new merch, and there's going to be some very cool new merch coming in the next couple of months. So go check that out. And then, yeah, keep an eye out for my new show, 2000 and Late, coming September 8th. So very, very soon. And thank you all so much for joining. Thank you, Gabrielle, for being here. This was so fun.
Thank you for doing it.
And, as always, stay strange, everybody.
Talk to y'all soon.